Greetings, Illumineers, and welcome to a deep dive into the story of Disney Lorcana. Disney Lorcana is a story-driven trading card game featuring beloved characters from Disney's many franchises, where every set not only has a theme, but also advances an overarching plot. Today we'll be taking a look at the second set of the card game, one that kicks off a brand new storyline with Rise of the Floodborn. Join us as we uncover the story of this set through the various products and lore created by the team at Ravensburger, sometimes even being hidden in the cards themselves. Enjoy. In the heart of Lorcana lies the Great Illuminary, a sanctuary of magic, creativity, and endless possibilities. But today, this hub of wonder is shaken to its core by an event that will change the fate of the realm forever. Shanzi, a newly arrived Illumineer, is ready to leave her mark, but as the ground trembles beneath her feet, she finds herself swept into a mystery far greater than anything she could have imagined. Deep in the halls of the Great Illuminary, a rumble starts to form, followed by a loud crash. Then, chaos unfolds. Shattered columns, a rush of spilled magical ink, and Illumineers scrambling to contain the growing disaster. An explosion of mixed ink spills through the Illuminary, consuming everything in its path. Precious items of lore, enchanted mirrors, ancient artifacts, are swept away in the torrent. And in the Hall of Lorcana, the very heart of this magical realm, the unthinkable happens. A massive wave of swirling, multicolored ink crashes into the room. Glimmers brought to life by the Illumineers are caught in the flood. As the ink washes over them, they begin to transform. Amidst the chaos, something extraordinary unfolds. The glimmers touched by the flood emerge, changed. Cogsworth, once a charming clock, now strides forward with silvered wisdom and a sturdy cane. Belle, a dreamer and adventurer, dons a cloak and quiver, ready to face new challenges. Shanzi, perched on a high terrace with her friends Martin and Venturo, gaze in shock at the unrelenting torrent of ink cascading from the Illuminary into the inklands below. The flood spares nothing, carrying away centuries of lore and leaving behind a trail of mystery. Shanzi and her friends can only watch in awe and disbelief as the transformed Floodborn glimmers appear, their numbers growing with every passing moment. Questions abound. Where is the ink going? Who or what unleashed this chaos? And most importantly, what does it mean for the future of Lorcana? Rumors of an intentional attack begin to circulate. The Illumineers grow wary, their once busy halls now shadowed by unease. One thing is certain. A massive shift has occurred, a shift Lorcana will feel for a very long time. The great flood of the Illuminary has unleashed new power, new dangers, and new possibilities. What lies ahead for Lorcana? Only time will tell. We also got additional information surrounding the events of the flood with the short story Rise of the Floodborn, the roar of rushing ink. Get washed away in wonder and ink. A surprising turn of events poses serious threats and untold possibilities. Venturo was stumped. Understanding software was easy, and circuits were even easier. But a coin that was so lucky it could alter the very laws of probability. In the spacious halls of Lorcana, a shiny silver coin that read 10 cents hung suspended within a bluish sphere. It was lit somewhere from above, but it also seemed to glow from within. That was part of the puzzle. Venturo was convinced that the coin was a piece of technology so advanced it only appeared to be magic, and he was determined to figure out how it worked. If you think that's a logical conundrum, my good fellow, try making sense of this. The Illumineer turned, and across the hall he saw a glimmer of Basil, the great mouse detective, examining an item through a large magnifying glass. A Sumerian talisman, Basil continued. Yet another artifact to investigate. One, if my intuition serves me, which should be kept far from the more nefarious sort. Venturo nodded and scribbled a quick note, but his writing was even more illegible than usual. He couldn't even read it himself. He shook the pen, then lifted the notebook to eye level. It was trembling. Everything was. Basil? Venturo said. The talisman's not electrical, if that's what you're wondering. Perhaps its facets intensify the nature. At that moment, a wave of ink, mixed ink, came crashing through an archway at the opposite end of the Hall of Lorcana and barreled toward the detective. Basil? Venturo shouted. As the wave of ink washed over the mouse, there was a bright swirl of light. Basil's brown jacket became a stunning blue. And then suddenly there was a contraption with gears and a propeller behind him. He was strapped to it, his hands resting on some sort of lever system. Basil's eyes narrowed, and he tried the controls. "Ha ha!" he shouted as he lifted into the air. "How extraordinary!" And with that, he was off. Shouts and giggles erupted throughout the hall of Lorcana. Venturo saw a nearby Cinderella glimmer, gasp as the ink began to change her. But the flood swelled suddenly and knocked him off his feet before he could see what happened. The river of ink swept him, along with much of the lore that had been on display in the hall of Lorcana. Out of the hall and down a spacious hallway, Venturo looked all around for something to grab onto, but saw nothing. With a jolt, he realized that where the outer wall of the illuminary should be, there was only a jagged hole, gaping over the inklands, far, far below. Venturo's time in Lorcana flashed before his eyes, ink casting his first glimmer, discovering fantastic gadgets, and rubbing shoulders with heroes and villains alike. If only he could have said goodbye to Shanzi and "Martin!" he exclaimed. His friend was leaning from a doorway just ahead, reaching toward the flood for something Venturo couldn't see. "Martin!" Venturo shouted, louder this time. Martin saw Venturo, and his eyes widened. "Hold on!" Martin called over the roar of rushing ink. He leaned further out, grabbed Venturo's shirt, and with a loud grunt, hauled Venturo up out of the flood. The two stumbled backward until they bumped up against the railing of a nearby balcony. The two stared down at the steady streams of ink and lore pouring from the great illuminary down into the inklands. Venturo heard the telltale squeal of Shanzi's boots as his other friend rounded the corner and joined them at the balcony. None of them said a word. Venturo didn't know what happened, or how long the flood would last. But one thing was clear. The artifacts were down there, somewhere. He was going to find as many as possible before something happened to them. Besides, he still had to figure out how in the world that coin worked. One exciting thing about this set in particular is that we've started to see the cards themselves start to advance the story further. Please enjoy a retelling of those events. How will the characters themselves react to the events of the main story? Let's find out now. In the heart of the great illuminary, magic and mystery collide. A flood of enchanted ink spread across the inklands. From ingenious detectives to daring divers, the search for lore has begun. Basil, the sharp-minded investigator, finds himself drawn to the great illuminary's many wonders. "What an ingenious device," he exclaims, noting how its light refracts to reveal hidden secrets below. But even Basil knows that something is amiss. "There's no question," he says. "Something is afoot in the great illuminary." And he's right. This magical world is no longer what it once was. Hiram Flaversham, a toy maker known for his creativity, now finds himself with new tools at his disposal. The illuminary's magical energy fuels his imagination, bringing his creations to life in ways never seen before. Even the hardest workers feel the pressure. The magic broom, an industrial model, toils under the weight of the ink flood. Though it's powerful, there's only so much it can do in a magical flood. Elsa, known for her control over ice, uses her powers to protect the world of Lorcana. Yet, she soon learns that not even ice can stop the flood. It's only a temporary shield, but it gives the inhabitants of this world a fighting chance. Peter Pan's dagger, once safely hidden in the great illuminary, now floats freely in the flood, along with other countless lost artifacts. The flood has scattered treasures like these across the inklands. One of those relics is the Sorcerer's Spellbook, but its knowledge remains a beacon for those who seek power. But beware, the price of knowledge can be steep. Chief Bogo, back at the scene of the flood, confirms what many had feared. The ink flood was caused by an explosion, an event that has set everything in motion. The flood is under control, but the damage is done. He advises everyone to stay clear of the area. Judy Hopps, the ever-optimistic officer, has her sights set on a mystery of her own. A locked lore book that could hold the key to unraveling the flood's true origins. Corbra Bubbles, a social worker with a sharp mind, is stunned by the reports of a magic spellbook swept away by a magic flood. How can something so powerful be lost so easily? Meanwhile, certain glimmers are transformed into Floodborn. Pinocchio, one of the first transformed by the ink, races headfirst into the inklands. Cruella de Vil, ever the fashion icon, declares, "It's ink couture, darling," while meanwhile Alice floats down the rabbit hole, lost in the ever-changing ink. Yzma, missing her beauty sleep, can't shake the visions of llamas. Even in the midst of all the chaos, "All I see when I close my eyes is llamas," she exclaims. Much to Kronk's bewilderment, he claims he just saw one in the flood. Poor little guy. Meanwhile, the search for the artifacts and lore is on. The Queen of Hearts, always impulsive, spots the glow of lore in the flood. The spell book, she cries. Don't let it get away. Orville, ever the adventurer, calls for action. Flight 3759, boarding now. Let's go get that lore. Alice, feeling confused, wonders how the Inklings can still be changing when she doesn't see the flood anymore. The Cheshire Cat, always grinning, offers his cryptic wisdom. Things are always changing, you know. It would be quite a change if they didn't. Little John, the loyal friend, urges Robin Hood not to rush. Take a load off. There's plenty of time to search for the lost lore. Meanwhile, Prince Charming continues his search for the mysterious young woman who stole his heart at the ball, Cinderella. But in the Inklands, nothing is as it seems, and he only finds more mysteries. Eli LaBeouf sees opportunity in the chaos, wondering if these magical ink casters can be used to create his favorite treat, magical beignets. Verana, the Fang Chief, faces hard decisions in this unfamiliar world. She must protect her daughter, Namari, even as the flood threatens to change everything they know. Lawrence, a manservant with ambition, sees the flood as his chance to finally claim the crown he's always wanted. Unbeknownst to them, danger lurks in the distance, while Donald Duck and Minnie Mouse brave the ocean depths in search for lost lore. As the flood of ink continues to reshape the realm, the search for lore becomes a race against time. For those caught in its currents, only one thing is certain: the journey has just begun. The flood may have subsided, but there still are mysteries to uncover. Who or what caused this flood in the first place? And what will be the ramifications of all the ink moving through the Inklands? Stay tuned for the next episode, where we take a deep dive into the next set of Disney Lorcana, Into the Inklands.